of chemical machinery any more than I am an automobile when I drive it.
All right, well, rest your chemical machine for a moment, and we'll come right back. Terence McKenna from the Big Island of Hawaii is my guest. We've got 30 more. If you've got a question, we've got phone lines. I'm Art Bell, and this is CBC. My guest is Terence McKenna. Terence, again, with respect to Timothy, he, of course, as you well know, has been launched into orbit with a number of other notables. And I was just wondering, again, referencing that 25,000 hits of Blue Santos, do you suppose it's possible that Timothy had them launched with himself, and that orbital decay will provide one great last acid rain at about 2012?
Well, he did want to prove that you can take it with you.
All right. First-time caller line. You're on the air with Terence McKenna. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Where are you?
I'm in Nanaimo, BC.
British Columbia. All right.
Yeah. I first discovered you, Art, about 3 years ago, and I was getting you very faintly at night from KEX in Oregon.
Yes.
Now we've got you on CFUN in Vancouver, and we're all real happy about it.
Thank you.
You keep us up all night. So, Terence,
Sure.
I've read, I think, all of your books, if not most of them, and in True Hallucinations, there's a part where you have a mushroom in the hut with you and your brother, and he makes a sound that you describe, but I think nobody else that, unless we were there, we wouldn't understand the sound, makes the mushroom glow, or appear to. And you were speaking before about human consciousness interacting through resonance with the universe around us. And I wonder if you could sort of explain how those two things tie in, and in doing so, I'd like to ask you if you've read The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot.
I have read The Holographic Universe. He was a friend of mine. He unfortunately died a few years ago. Resonance is the principle, almost magical, of action at a distance. You can play a certain open note on the cello, and the piano 50 feet across the room will sound in the same octave. So resonance, we know exists. It's a musical phenomenon, but what we need to realize, I think, is that resonance is built into time. Time, in a sense, you could say a given moment in time is a kind of hologrammatic interference pattern of past times, and I consider those past times to be in resonance. So one of the things Art and I haven't discussed tonight about my time wave is that it does allow you to look at a certain period of time and decide what it was in resonance with in the past, and those past epochs that are influencing it, then their influence can be seen in popular fads, furniture styles, what movies are up, that sort of thing.
Now, with the DMT, you say it's produced in our bodies.
It is.
Can the DMT molecule in the brain change our electron spin resonance in the molecules in our brain? And can that possibly make our brain act as an antenna that allows us to see all those other things that you're talking about? Well,
these are the kinds of ideas that my brother and I were playing with clear back in the early 70s, and the tragedy, one of the tragedies of the repression of psychedelics is not that they were taken out of the hands of the curious public, but that they were made off limits to scientific research. Not that anybody put up a sign, but it was very clearly understood that pharmacologists who specialized in psychedelics could expect to be passed over, not promoted, not given the plum jobs. I could spiel off a dozen questions, very interesting central questions about the mechanism of psychedelics that we could answer with ordinary clinical studies. It's simply that how do you do ordinary clinical studies on substances that the government has made illegal? It's impossible.
Of course you don't. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Terence McKenna. Hi.
Wow, this is a very serendipitous meeting. Thank you. I've played around with a lot of EEG for the last few years, and I find that I do serendipitous things, but unplanned. Hey, thanks, Art.
Sure.
What do you think? Well, there was one physicist, I can't think of his name. He describes time as nature's way of keeping things from happening all at once.
That's exactly what Terence just said we're going to come to at the 0 point 2012.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to get back into a little bit of physics, but almost cosmic physics, having to do with black holes.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you how you felt about the black hole being nature's way of the ultimate recycling device in the universe.
Well, it certainly is this. Anything which falls into a black hole is deconstructed down to spin and angular momentum, and I think all other information is stripped out of it. I think, if there can be gravitational wells like that, then there can also be the kind of novelty wells that I'm suggesting. In other words...
Novelty wells?
Well, if statistical probability is not a very clear way of looking at the universe, if in fact probabilities vary through space and time of any given event, then there will be areas of extremely high improbability and conversely probability. So I think we've got to get past this idea of time as a smooth surface and begin to think of it as a kind of landscape, an area, a place where some things are more probable in some places and some things more probable in others. You look for water in the bottom of the valley, you look for glaciers up on the slopes. I think time has a topography. It is a topological surface of some sort, and science in the West has just completely sailed past all this.
Well, how is it described? Well, I don't want to make it a long thing out of this, but...
Well, in Newton, it's described as pure duration, in other words, perfect flatness. Then Einstein comes along and he says, well, no, in the presence of massive gravitational objects, space-time has a very smooth and slight curvature. What I'm saying is that even at local scales, time is variable, and that when we explode time at any scale, we discover the same fractal patterns as we're seeing on scales far above and far below it. So really,
or far in and far out of it, too.
Far in it and far out of it. So really what it is it's like a Fourier transform or something like that. It's a holographic matrix that is self-similar on many scales. The organization of a galaxy, the organization of an atom, these things in my theory are morphologically linked. They look that way because they are linked across scale and across space and time by an underlying architecture of the universe. There's a big mystery now in cosmology, the dark matter mystery. Where is 90% of the matter? For the galaxies to be hanging together under the laws of gravity, 90% of them must be missing. Well, I say there's no missing matter. What's missing here are some laws, and the laws that's missing...
Could it be consciousness itself?
Well, it's this appetite for complexity, that every particle in the universe participates in this. The galaxies hang together as spirals because it's the more novel thing to do. Not because they are under the control of gravity, but because there is a cosmic law of aggregation toward novelty that we've missed.
Would the Fourier be a way of measuring that, say with Fourier measurement of the brain itself or EEG?
Well, you could measure it. You could measure it in a Fourier matrix. You could measure it in many different kinds of matrices. The point is to demonstrate it to somebody outside the system who's looking at it. I think the great breakthrough in mathematical modeling of nature in the last 20 years has been the discovery of fractals and self-similarity on many scales. And this is part of that. What I'm saying really is that time is a fractal structure. It can be defined by a limited set of variables and then iterated on the micro scale, the macro scale,